Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
So, 31 Brazilians have taken part in a Formula 1 race, and actually very few of them have been successful. But when they are good, my God, are they good. They have 8 world championships between them, and 101 victories at the pinnacle of motorsport. It's a great result for a nation more famed for footballers. But who are the top 10 best Brazilian race drivers of all time? So even though the likes of Enrique Bernaldi and Gino Bianco represented your country in Formula 1, let's begin the list. After you subscribe, comment and follow me on Twitter. With that said, let's look at the best from Brazil. Number 10, Cristiano de Mata. De Mata seemed to have the world in his hands in the early 2000s, winning the kart series in 2002 with a Newman Haas Toyota, and getting a move to Formula 1 with Toyota in 2003. In his first season, he beat experienced teammate Olivier Panis and scored occasional points. 2004 wasn't as successful for the Brazilian maestro, and he was dropped midway for countryman Ricardo Zonta after only scoring 3 points. His poor performances and openly speaking about issues within Toyota and not signing a contract for 2005 were the reasons given for the shift. But de Mata's brief career, although short, he did pick up decent results in his first year, and he didn't really deserve to be canned so early. After Formula 1, de Mata would take out his frustrations on Deere, and is now retired from motorsport. Number 9, Christian Fittipaldi. The second most successful member of the Fittipaldi family to enter Formula 1, although there's a big gap between Emerson and Wilson. Christian Fittipaldi is probably most remembered for flipping his Minardi at Monza. But he would pick up points in backmarker cars for his 3 years in Formula 1. He'd get a single point for his 6th place in Japan for Minardi in 1992, and would finish 4th in South Africa at the start of 1993, and would get another points finish that year in Monaco, scoring 5 for the year for Minardi, before switching to the Footwork Arrows team for 1994. He scored 2 4th place finishes and 6 points. Decent results in poor cars, but Christian decided to try his luck in America in the kart series, and has also had success in endurance racing. Funnily enough, a mathematics study in 2016 found that Christian Fittipaldi was the 11th best driver in Formula 1 history, and I'm the Queen of Macedonia. But he is the 9th best Brazilian on this list. Number 8, Mauricio Gugelmin. An average career in Formula 1, but he did score a podium at his home race, and is one of only 8 Brazilians to actually get a podium in Formula 1. 4 years with the Leighton House March team, and a final disastrous year with Jordan. It was his 2nd year with the March team in 1989 that saw him take 3rd place in Brazil, behind Mansell and Prost. Although again, Gugelmin is probably most remembered for rolling his March at the French Grand Prix of the same year. In 1991, the owner of the Leighton House team was arrested for fraud, and Gugelmin ended up with Jordan, who were in financial difficulty themselves, and retired from 11 out of 16 races with a best finish of 7th. After Formula 1, Mauricio would race in the kart series, like most Brazilians seemed to do at the time. A smattering of podiums and a single win in 1997, Mauricio Gugelmin is now retired and living in Brazil. Number 7, Roberto Moreno. Roberto Moreno was a driver who struggled to find top drives for most of his career, often having to settle for teams like Colony and Eurobrin. In fact, most of his career was a disaster. After winning the International Formula 3000 Championship in an unsponsored, underfunded Bromley Motorsport car, a feat that seemed to impress no one, and so instead took a testing role with Ferrari. After a couple of races with AGS in 1987, his Ferrari connections would land him a dream drive, with Colony Spa in 1989, only qualifying for 4 races out of 16 and retiring from all of them. 1990 seemed to be even worse, with Eurobrin only qualifying for 2 races, finishing 1. But fortunately for Moreno, Alessandro Nannini would be severely injured in a helicopter crash, and Moreno would spend the last 2 races of 1990 with Benetton, managing to finish 2nd behind teammate Piquet on his Benetton debut, and finishing 7th in Australia. He'd signed for Benetton for 1991, but the year was disastrous. And after a young, unknown German by the name of Michael Schumacher made his debut for Jordan in Belgium, Moreno was paid off to leave and would swap with the talented German upstart at Jordan before ending up at Minardi, Andrea Moda and Forti. Moreno slipped out of F1 unnoticed. Racing in kart? Why Brazil? Why were you so obsessed with karts racing? He is now racing in historical events and is pretty much retired. A good driver who never got good drives in Formula 1. Even with Benetton, it was wrong place, wrong time, and sandbagging for Piquet didn't help. We'll come back to Piquet a little later. Number 6, Felipe Massa. Being Ferrari number 2 driver for so long must be pretty sapping for your morale. He made his F1 debut with Sauber in 2002 and was instantly dropped the next year, testing for Ferrari instead. He returned with Sauber in 2004 and after a couple of average years, got a dream job at Ferrari as Schumacher's number 2 driver. He'd take 10 wins for Ferrari and finish second in the 2008 championship to new hotshot Lewis Hamilton. This was the last time Massa won a race. In 2009, he had missed the second half of the year after being injured in a horrifying crash caused by a piece of Barrichello's suspension falling off and flying into Massa's face at speed. He'd return for 4 more years, but results were poor, and he'd leave Ferrari for Williams before hanging it up in 2017. He's now racing for Venturi in Formula E. Number 5, Rubens Barrichello. The man who has competed in more F1 races than anyone, at least for another season, took a long time to find success. Starting with Jordan in 1993, he'd get points if not success with a struggling outfit. Although in 1994 he'd finished 6th in the championship. In 1997 he'd join Jackie Stewart's Ford team and score more points and more podiums, but he'd leave the only win of Stuart Ford's brief tenure to teammate Johnny Herbert. He'd get a dream drive with Ferrari in the year 2000. He would always play second fiddle to Schumacher, even move out the way for him on occasions, but he would finish second in the championship in 2002 and 2004, before moving to Honda in 2006. He'd have his only 0-point season in 2007 before Honda broke apart, and Barrichello would rise from the ashes with the Brawn team and take his last couple of wins, before finishing his career with a couple of mediocre seasons with Williams. Since then, he has been racing in the Brazilian Stock Car Championship, winning the whole damn show in 2014 in a Chevrolet. Number 4, Carlos Pace. Now, Carlos Pace didn't win as many races, or finish as well in the championship as the likes of Massa and Barrichello. In fact, Carlos would win only one race in Brazil in 1975. It's more what could have been, as he lost his life in 1977 in a light aircraft crash in Brazil. He started with the earlier form of the Williams team in 1972 and moved to Surtees in 1973, scoring a podium. He started the next year with Surtees before moving to Brabham and getting a best second in Austria. He'd remained with Brabham for the last years of his life and career, winning the aforementioned Brazilian Grand Prix and scoring several podiums. If you doubt Carlos Pace's importance to Brazil, they renamed the Interlagos track as the Autodromo José Carlos Pace. Now that's an honour. Number 3, Nelson Piquet. Now his son does definitely not make this space, and for his shady part in Crashgate, Nelson probably shouldn't either, but he was a 3 times world champion and that cannot be discounted. He'd spent 8 years with the Brabham team, winning 2 championships and winning 13 races. He'd moved to Williams and win his final championship in 1987, before spending relatively mediocre years with Lotus and Benetton, although in his own admission, after a big crash at Imola in 1987, he lost some of his depth perception and was just there for the money. He needs it with his 7 kids and several ex-wives, not to mention his parking and speeding tickets he needs to pay. And probably the best moment in F1 history is Piquet getting into a fight with Alessio Salazar after being taken out of a German Grand Prix of 1982. Number 2, Emerson Fittipaldi. Another case of wasted potential, but to be honest, Emerson had a pretty amazing career. And in broader motorsport, is probably one of the best of all time. Emerson Fittipaldi began in Formula 1 with Lotus, and in his third year won the 1972 Formula 1 Championship. He moved to McLaren in 1973 and won the championship a second time in 1974. He'd lose out to Lauda in 1975 and while still in his prime committed career suicide and spent his last 5 years with his brother's Fittipaldi automotive team. Only a couple of podiums in those 5 years led to him retiring in 1980 and working with the Fittipaldi team to try and make it work on as small a budget as possible. They went out of business in 1982. But Emerson Fittipaldi kept going. He would race in the kart series between 1984 and 1996, winning the championship in 1989 with Patrick Racing, as well as the Indy 500 in 1989 and 1993. He is truly a legend and most deserving of a place near the top of his list. However, I believe one driver could be considered better. I wonder who it is. Number 1. Felipe Massa. Nah, just kidding, it's Ayrton Senna. Yeah, you probably knew this as soon as you saw the thumbnail, but not only is Ayrton Senna one of the best Brazilians, he is also one of the best all-round of all time. 3 world championships and winning a quarter of the races he entered. Not too shabby for a career of 10 years in one of the most competitive eras of the sport's history. So many great drivers on that grid. Not only did you have Senna and Piquet, but Prost, Mansell, Lauda, Rosberg, Tarquini and Gregor Wojtek. Senna started with the small Tolman Haas team in a car that was overweight and underpowered, but still he challenged Prost in the rain in Monaco. And when the race was cut short, Senna was second, and many thought if the race continued he would have won. He'd moved to Lotus between 1985 and 1987, winning 6 races, but it was a move to McLaren that brought him real success. 3 championship wins and the other 35 of his victories, plus 2 more seasons where he finished second. It was a very successful time for Senna. But it was his move in 1994 to the Williams team where things turned sour. Crashing at Imola in 1994, we never got to find out how much more Senna had to offer. A sad end to this list. But without a doubt, Ayrton Senna is the greatest Brazilian Formula 1 driver of all time. So that was the list. If you liked this video, please leave a comment and subscribe. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Maybe mention some drivers you thought should have made the list. With that said, look out for more videos soon, and have a good one.